That's true.
I've got to move on because we're running behind here. And as to that, I'm going to sort of read through these quick headlines, maybe get a quick comment from you guys before we dig into the meat of our U.S. stories. So, I mentioned the courts, that we have a couple other stories from the Supreme Court this week, from the AP. The court signaled support for presidential authority to remove leaders of independent federal boards and commissions, a move that could significantly expand executive power by making it easier for a president to fire officials without cause. The decision reflects a conservative majority's broader trend towards strengthening executive control over government agencies. Solicitor General John Sauer, who argued the immunity case for Trump, called on the court to overturn Humphrey's executor, an unanimous 90-year-old decision that has limited when presidents can fire agency board members, saying the decision established a headless fourth branch of government, right? This is the administrative state, the deep state that is in disinterest and Nazis like Steve Bannon have been trying to get rid of for decades. In another case from the court this week, they also heard arguments on whether federal limits on coordinated spending between political parties and candidates violate the First Amendment, with several conservative justices signaling sympathy to the challengers, though they offered few clues about the outcome. Justices Gorsuch and Barrett largely stayed silent during the proceedings, with others split over corruption risks versus free speech concerns. This case appears difficult to predict, though a ruling could further weaken campaign finance limits when a decision comes this summer. Leslie, real quick, we keep asking whether the courts are the last guardrail, but if the Supreme Court itself is clearing the path for more executive power and more money in politics, do those upstream guardrails even matter?
It is a corrupt court, plain and simple. I was thinking about it yesterday. It's like Trump is in a car, speed racing down a busy highway, just smashing into every car to get out of the way, throwing them over the edge. And people seem to think it's okay. Like if it was a real highway and the car was doing that, you'd stop it. But, they're corrupt. They take money under the table, gifts under the table. They have
right on top of the table in Clarence Thomas's case.
Right on top of the table. And they just don't care. They don't care. They're doing it all out in the open. They're daring us, and they have, gotten themselves into a position, and they're just giving a big middle finger to most of us in the country. And it's tragic. It's tragic to think of somebody going to all that trouble, going in those paths, law school, clerking, all those things, to be corrupt, to not follow universal principles, and just to be so easily bent. It just shows the weakness of their moral character, and that they're unfit to be Supreme Court justices. They should be removed, or the court should be diluted with additional members, which it should be anyway, because there's been this argument we should have one for every circuit or something, and we are up to like 13 circuits now.
That would give you 13, yeah.
Right, where we used to be 9. But they're going to keep abusing their power until they're stopped. Plain and simple.
We've got to do something big about the court, about the redistricting, about the, open corruption, the open cheating that we've been, seeing from.
And they don't seem to think that it's ever going to, splash back onto them. But like I say, people pass down more than their material wealth and their genetics. They pass on who they are as a people, and their descendants are going to be negatively impacted by who they are as a person and what they've done in their lifetime. I guarantee it. And you just have to look at the history of people who have been bad and corrupt, and look at their children and their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren. And honestly, if they really cared, they would behave in a different way. But some of them don't. Like Clarence Thomas, I believe, does not have any biological children. So, but it does impact your descendants will look and see who you were and what you did. That's my warning.
And I hope they're embarrassed at the very least.